The House has passed a bill tonight in Washington to cut in half the interest rate on new government college student loans made by the feds. These are the popular Stafford loans. The interest rate would be 3.86%. The president is expected to sign this bill, which has already passed the Senate by an overwhelming margin. One senator who voted against it is Democrat Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. And when I talked with her this afternoon from Washington, the first thing I asked was, why?
The bill has a problem, and that is it is set up to make about $184 billion off the backs of our kids in profits over the next 10 years. And I just think that's the wrong approach. That's not what we should be doing. That's profits. That's net of what it costs for the government to have the money, of the administrative costs, and of the bad debt fees. I don't think we ought to be treating our students like a profit center, and so that's why I voted against it.
Now, isn't this, though, the best that Congress could come up with at this point? I mean, we may have ended up with no bill, and the vote was 83-18 in favor in the Senate.
Well, I do want to remind you that if the interest rates had stayed the same, the amount of profits that the government would have made on the backs of our kids would have been $184 billion. The bill that actually passed would make another $774 million on top of that. And I just think that's the wrong approach. But I do want to remind you here, we passed two different bills in the Senate to reduce the actual costs of borrowing for our kids. We actually reduced the cost. That passed by a majority of the Senate, but the Republicans filibustered it. Never explained why they were filibustering it. They just filibustered it. And so at the end of the day, there's a real question about what's going on here. I think as a matter of principle, what we should do is we should at least reduce the profits we're making off the backs of our kids. I think that's the right way to go.
As I understand it, there will be some chance to change this bill, this legislation, and the approach next year. If that is true, are you going to be involved in that? Are you going to try to make changes next year?
Yep. In fact, the president is already out there. He's talking about the costs of college, and it's both halves. You know, we have a bigger issue in front of us. It's refinancing $1 trillion in outstanding student loan debt, for which the government is making profits, but it's also about bringing down the costs of college overall. So I'm already working on that. I'm working on that with the leadership in the Senate, and I'm in conversations with the White House about it. I think that's where we all want to go. And on that, there's no difference. You know, sometimes there are questions about short-term political compromises, but this is really about the direction we're headed, and that is to bring down the costs of college for our kids. That's what we really need to do.
We also wanted and scheduled this to talk to you about Glass-Steagall Act. And I know that you and Senator McCain want to reinstate key parts of what is known as Glass-Steagall. How is it that liberal Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts and Republican John McCain agree on anything at all?
You know, this is the thing. Both of us get the basic principle, and that is banking should be boring. The place where you have your savings account and your checking account, that ought to be safe and secure and boring. And anyone who wants to go out and take risks in the marketplace, engage in trading, God bless them. Let them do that. But they shouldn't have access to FDIC-insured money to do it. They shouldn't have access to your checking account. John McCain believes that. I believe that. Angus King, independent from Maine, believes that. Maria Cantwell. And what we did is we got together, said, let's draw up a good, tough bill, and let's get out there and fight for it. And I tell you, if you're going to fight for something, you couldn't ask for a better partner than John McCain.
All right, and essentially this would keep investment houses from buying commercial banks and then investing the money, depositors' money, some say gambling with that money. Do you think that that's what these investment houses would be doing or were doing back in 2008? They were gambling with depositors' money at regular banks?
You know, we actually see it happening, and I mean, it's happening now. Right now, the large financial institutions borrow at reduced rates. That is, they can actually get money for less than, say, a local community bank can. Why? Because they are too big to fail. And part of what makes them too big to fail is the access they've got to those FDIC-insured deposits. So what this is about is really just disentangling those two things. It's one more tool in the toolbox to help get rid of too big to fail. And I think it's a very good approach.
We'll see how that goes.
In the toolbox.
And not to interrupt you here, but thank you so much for taking the time. Our time is running out with the satellite here. So Elizabeth Warren, thank you so much, Senator, for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you.